The Trojan War was a legendary conflict in Greek mythology between the Achaean Greeks against the city of Troy. The war is one of the most important events in Greek mythology, and it has been narrated through many works of Greek literature, most notably Homer's Iliad. The core of the Iliad, books 2 to 23, describes a period of 4 days and 2 nights in the 10th year of the decade-long siege of Troy. The key to unlocking the historic Trojan War, in my opinion, is to first identify who exactly the Trojans, the Amazons, and the Achaeans were in history, because these were the major players in the Iliad. In my previous video titled Historical Troy was in Eupatoria near the Amazon city of Themyscira on the Black Sea southern coast, I talked about the alliance between the Trojans and the Amazons during the war, and how close was Themyscira, the capital of the Amazons, to the city of Troy, which I identified as Eupatoria, just 65 kilometers away from each other. In that video, I concluded, based on Homer's descriptions, that the city of Troy must be located near the conjunction of two rivers, namely Scamander, which I identified as the Iris or Yesilirmak River, and the Simoeis River, which I identified as the Lycus or Kelkit River. And Eupatoria, just like Troy, was located just south of where the Lycus flows into the Iris River. Both Eupatoria and Themyscira were near the southern coast of the Black Sea in Turkey, in a region also known as the Pontic region of Asia Minor in northern Anatolia, Turkey. Also, in my other video titled Troy was Hyasa, Amazon was Azi, Aeneas was Achilles, and Osiris eclipse on Trojan War's 10th year, I identified the Trojan-Amazon alliance as the Hyasa-Azi Confederation located in the Pontic region of Asia Minor, where also Eupatoria and Themyscira were located. I specifically identified Hyasa as Troy and Azi as Amazon. I ended that video by saying that Hercules II's historical solar eclipse was visible at the mouth of the Yesilirmak River, where according to Homer the Trojan War battles were fought on August 2, 979 BC at 2:31:30 UTC, just 17 minutes after sunrise. That day also marked the death of Patroclus, a close friend of Achilles, during the 10th year of the Trojan War. I dated Hercules eclipse using stellarium in my video titled Redating Hercules II's solar eclipse to August 2, 979 BC means Hittite chronology is 334 years too early. This eclipse occurred in the latter part of Hercules' 10th year, thus Hercules' first year when he ascended the Hittite throne coincided with the first year of the Trojan War. Details about Dido's character, life, and role in the founding of Carthage are best known from the account given in Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, written around 20 BC, which tells the legendary story of the Trojan hero Aeneas. Dido is described as a clever and enterprising woman who flees her ruthless and autocratic brother Pygmalion after discovering that he was responsible for her husband's death. Through her wisdom and leadership, the city of Carthage was founded and made prosperous. While in Carthage, Dido and Aeneas fell in love. Many names in the legend of Dido are of Punic origin, which suggests that the first Greek authors who mention this story have taken up Phoenician accounts. One suggestion is that Dido is an epithet from the same Semitic root as David, which means beloved. Because I dated the 10th year of the Trojan War, circa 979 BC, I expect the events happening in the life of the Trojan hero Aeneas after the war to be dated shortly after 979 BC. The king of Israel during this time was Solomon, whose reign is dated by historians circa 970 to 931 BC. Thus, in my opinion, Dido's name having the same Semitic root as King David was not a coincidence. In most accounts, Dido was the queen of the Phoenician city-state of Tyre, who fled tyranny by her autocratic brother Pygmalion, who was her co-ruler. According to tradition, an unnamed king of Tyre made his very beautiful daughter Dido and son Pygmalion his joint heirs. But on his death, the people took Pygmalion alone as their ruler, though Pygmalion was yet still a boy. Dido married Acerbas, her uncle, who as priest of Melkart, the Phoenician equivalent of Heracles, was second in power to King Pygmalion. Rumor told that Acerbas had much wealth secretly buried, and King Pygmalion had Acerbas murdered in hopes of gaining this wealth. The king of Tyre during the time of Solomon was King Hiram I, whose regnal years have been calculated by some as 980 to 947 BC, in succession to his father Abibaal. This means, in my research, Hiram I became king of Tyre in the 9th year of the Trojan War in 980 BC. I believe Hiram I was Pygmalion and his sister was Dido. Although none of the traditions about Dido mention it, I believe she left behind her son when she fled Tyre in secret after her husband was murdered by Pygmalion. Pygmalion or Hiram I adopted her son and named her son after him, that is to say, Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff is the central character of an allegory presented to all candidates during the third degree in Freemasonry. Hiram is presented as the chief architect of King Solomon's temple. He is murdered inside his temple by 3 ruffians after they failed to obtain from him the master mason's secrets. In 1 Kings chapter 7, verses 13 to 14, Hiram is described as the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and who was the son of a Tyrian bronze worker sent for by Solomon to cast the bronze furnishings and ornate decorations for the new temple. From this reference, Freemasons refer to Hiram with the added Abiff as the widow's son. If you look at a map of the Promised Land, one can see that Tyre was assigned to the tribe of Asher, whose inheritance was right next to Naphtali's inheritance. Because Hiram Abiff's mother was described as coming from the tribe of Naphtali, this means Dido, who I believe was Hiram Abiff's mother, was from this tribe through Dido's mother. In Judaism, matrilineality is the traditional method of determining Jewishness, which relies on tracing one's maternal line. Thus, in my research, Dido and Pygmalion were step-siblings having the same father but different mothers. Dido's Jewishness also explains why her name derives from the same Semitic root for David. Virgil credited Dido with the founding of Carthage, and classical authors give 2 dates for the founding of Carthage. The first is that of Pompeius Strobus that says this took place 72 years before the foundation of Rome. At least as early as the 1st century BC, the date most commonly used by Roman writers for the founding of Rome was 753 BC. This would place Dido's flight in 753 plus 72 equals 825 BC. Another tradition, that of the Greek historian Timaeus, gives 814 BC for the founding of Carthage. If these dates of the founding of Carthage are to be believed, they refute the idea that she could have had any liaison with Aeneas. Aeneas fought in the Trojan War, which is conventionally dated anywhere from the 14th to the 12th centuries BC, but which I dated circa 10th century BC. This is far too early for Aeneas to have been alive in the time of Dido, unless, of course, if the founding of Carthage occurred more than a century earlier, which is what my research made me conclude. In Virgil's Aeneid, Aeneas is cast as an ancestor of Romulus and Remus, whose story tells of the events that led to the founding of the city of Rome by Romulus, following his fratricide of Remus. However, in my research, Aeneas was the founder of the mysterious Sea Peoples instead. The Sea Peoples are a hypothesized seafaring confederation that attacked ancient Egypt and other regions in the East Mediterranean before and during the late Bronze Age collapse, circa 1200 to 900 BC. Possible records of Sea Peoples generally date to two campaigns of Ramses II, a pharaoh of the militant 19th dynasty, operations near the Delta in year 2 of his reign, and the major confrontation with the Hittite Empire and allies at the Battle of Kadesh in his year 5. The Sherden are one of the several ethnic groups the Sea Peoples were said to be composed of, and they allied with Egypt against the Hittites at the Battle of Kadesh. In my video titled Merneptah's Victory over Israel's Teli in 875 BC and Amenmeses or Zerah the Cushites' defeat by Asa in the Battle of Zephat in 869 BC, I dated the start of Merneptah's reign in 879 BC. According to current Egyptian chronology, the start of Ramses II's reign was 66 years before the start of Merneptah's reign, which in my research is 945 BC. Thus, Ramses II's first encounter with the Sea Peoples in his year 2 or in 944 BC was only 35 years after the end of the Trojan War, which I dated in 979 BC. The destruction of the Hittite Empire has been recognized in an inscription carved at Medinet Habu in Egypt in the 8th year of Ramses III. This text narrates a contemporary great movement of peoples in the eastern Mediterranean as a result of which the lands were removed. No land could stand before their arms, from Hatti, Karshemish, Arzawa, on being cut off. Ramses III has been described as a warrior pharaoh due to his strong military strategies. He led the way by defeating the invaders known as the Sea Peoples, who had caused destruction in other civilizations and empires. A disruption of intercultural connections, including those with one of Egypt's most important trade partners, Cyprus, followed in the wake of these events. This led some researchers to conclude that the Sea Peoples were from Cyprus. I dated the latter part of Ramses III's 7th year reign in my video titled The Sotic Rise recorded in the Illahum Papyrus was on May 27, 845 BC during Ramses III's 7th year. The Roman poet Virgil, in his Aeneid, credits Aeneas with the founding of Italy. However, I believe it was a Roman adaptation of Aeneas' founding of Salamis, Cyprus, which founding is credited by tradition to another Trojan War veteran, Teucer, instead. Also, Setnakte, the father of Ramses III, who destroyed the Sea Peoples, was not the son, brother, or a direct descendant of either Tusret or Meneptah Siptah, the immediately preceding two pharaohs. Setnakte was a man of unknown origins who seized the throne during a time of crisis and political unrest. My research made me conclude that Setnakte was a descendant of Dido, the legendary founder of Carthage. Dido cursed Aeneas and his descendants when she predicted eternal strife between Aeneas' people and hers. Rise up from my bones, avenging spirit, she said. In Apollonius of Rhodes' Argonautica, Samius is briefly noted as the great father of a lesser son, Coronus, who sailed forth among the Argonauts. Samius was also an Argonaut in some versions, and according to Virgil, Aeneas saw him. The time which the Greek traditions assign to the Argonauts is about one generation before the Trojan War. If both Samius and his son were Argonauts, this makes the Argonauts, which include Heracles, who is also known as Hercules, 1 or 2 generations before the Trojan War. Because Solomon was the king of Israel during the time of Aeneas, this makes Heracles 1 or 2 generations before Aeneas and Solomon. Extraordinary strength, courage, ingenuity, and sexual prowess with both males and females were among the characteristics commonly attributed to Heracles. Goliath is a Philistine warrior from Gath in the book of Samuel. The inhabitants of Gath are known as the Gittites. In 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 15 to 22, the Bible mentioned 4 descendants of Rapha in Gath, where one of them was mentioned as the brother of Goliath the Gittite, thus making Goliath the 5th descendant of Rapha. Because Goliath fought David, father of Solomon, Goliath was 1 generation before Solomon and Aeneas. This makes Rapha the father of 5 sons, renowned with extraordinary strengths, living 2 generations before the Trojan War. I believe Rapha was the biblical Heracles. Also, because only one of Rapha's descendants recorded in the Bible was mentioned as the brother of Goliath the Gittite, it means that Goliath and his unnamed brother were Rapha's sons from another wife, distinct from his wife and mother of his 3 other children. In Greek mythology, Megara was a Theban princess and the first wife of the hero Heracles. According to the mythographer Apollodorus, Megara was the mother of 3 sons by Heracles named Terimachus, Cleontiades, and Deicun. Heracles is also believed to have fathered 2 divine sons, Alexiares and Anicetus.